pilots are there to help pilots. Like, we love helping each other, but you have to ask for that help. You're in a race by yourself. So I've never compared myself to anyone. The only person I ever compare myself is to myself.
Most pilots don't understand what career opportunities are available in the world of aviation. They're making career decisions based on advice from friends or posts on internet forums, meaning they are taking huge risks with their livelihood without having all the details. This podcast was created to help you understand the aviation industry so you can find your dream job. Let's get ready for Pushback. Here's your host and my dad, Nick Fialka.
Hey, pilot, welcome to Ready for Pushback. I'm Nick Fialka, and I am talking to André Beckles today. We talk all about his journey to the major airlines and how he sprinted his way across aviation to get to American Airlines. It's a fantastic story. He's one of our coaches at Spitfire Elite. He is one of the kings of the app review process. At the end of this show, stay tuned because we do talk a lot about application review and why it's important and why you need to do it. So I hope you enjoy the show. So sit back, relax. Let's get ready for Pushback. Hey, pilot, did you just get a new conditional job offer? Are you getting out of the military and going to move your family across the country? Are you going to move in base somewhere, or are you going to go out to find that second home that you've been looking for? Well, I want you to stop right now, pick up the phone, and call Marty and the team at Trident Home Loans. It's an organization that's run by pilots. They understand pilot pay. They understand contracts. They understand military. They have the best VA loans in the United States. Marty and his team have been doing mortgages for years. They've been doing my mortgages for years. I trust him and his team more than any other organization. I challenge you to get a better deal anywhere else. Go ahead, reach out, get a mortgage quote, and then call Marty and his team. They will walk you through the process and show you how competitive their rates are. So go right now, tridenthomeloans.com, and check them out. All right, guys and gals, here we are. I have my friend André Beckles with me back again today. For those of you listening on YouTube, thank you so much for joining me today. I love this new media that we are able to provide, and it's going to get better and better and better. André is with me. He is part of my awesome Spitfire Elite team, and I will let him talk to you all about what he specializes in. So André, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. So happy to be here.
Dude, this is great. We've been chatting around for a couple of weeks trying to get on board with one another, so I'm glad we could finally make this work.
Absolutely. I'm excited it all worked out. And been listening to the podcast, been a fan myself. So it's great to be on here and be able to join forces with you and help people.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, full disclosure, I always say my mom is the only person that listens to this show. Turns out I was hanging out with her last week. She has actually not listened to my show. So now I feel like I've been lying the whole time. Dude, okay, tell me your story. Give everybody at home a snapshot of who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from the Bahamas. I'm Bahamian, and grew up in Freeport, Bahamas. That's where I was born. Moved to Nassau about 5-6 years after that. My parents actually met at Liberty University in Lynchburg, Virginia. After they got married, they moved down to the Bahamas, back where my father's from. So I was born Freeport, moved to Nassau shortly thereafter. And then in 2003, my dad got offered a job back at Liberty. So we moved from the Bahamas back up to Lynchburg, Virginia. And that's where I went through everything. So I started there in the 4th grade, went to the high school that's attached to the university, now called Liberty Christian Academy, and then graduated from there, and then went to Liberty University and spent all 4 years there. And that's where I started doing my aviation training. So that's kind of the beginning of the story is, I grew up in the Bahamas, still have all my family, my dad's side down there. We try to go down maybe once a year or so. And then 2003, hip, hip, hooray, we're going to where it snows now. So, been quite the journey. Definitely, an interesting, kind of change of events, but that's how the story started, basically, like that.
Did you play on Snowplex as a kid, like that big mountain thing they've got that's like a ski mountain at Liberty?
I did. So Snowplex opened while I was a student, I believe, or maybe shortly before. I only did tubing. I'm not bold enough to do snowboarding and skiing. I don't want to break my knee and be out for life. So I just did the tubing, maybe like once or twice, but I let everybody else, the more risky people go up there and do all that crazy stuff.
If you guys have never checked that out, it's a bananas thing. They've got basically a man-made mountain, and you can go snowboard on it. It's wild. Man, yep. Okay, so how'd you get into aviation? Did you go to the Liberty Aviation route?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting how I got into aviation is I've always been on airplanes my entire life. So before I was born, I couldn't tell you the first plane I was on. I couldn't tell you the first airplane I saw. Living in the Bahamas, we always traveled. Every holiday, every time we got to travel, we traveled to the U.S., usually Florida. That's where my mom is from. So we traveled to Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando all of the time. So I really don't know where the itch came from. But my brother, I have an older brother, and he's always been interested in aviation. So we had airplane books, we had airplane magazines, airplane this, airplane that. We'd always go to Nassau and do a little plane spotting on the fence, which is kind of cool when I fly to Nassau now to see that spot. It's kind of, takes me back a little bit. But I've always been involved and loved aviation. So it's kind of interesting because I was so much around it. I didn't want to do it in the sense that I'm doing now. I just wanted to maybe get my private pilot's license, just kind of recreationally do it. And then my brother actually went on and got all his flight ratings, worked at American Eagle, and now is at American right now. And after knowing that, going to Liberty, I'm like, well, I like business. Let me do business, more well-rounded degree. So I started as an accounting major, took accounting 110 and accounting 111. One semester, I was like, this is not it. This is not going to work. So quickly changed my major second semester freshman year, and that's where the aviation process kind of started.
That's cool. So did you get all your certifications and then go flight instruct there and bang out at 1,500 hours in the pattern at Liberty?
Yeah, so it was kind of cool. So I did get my private, my instrument, commercial, and CFI at Liberty. Did it rather quickly. So I got all my ratings in about 2 semesters of time. And all the while, I was always networking. I was always the one that was, chair flying in the actual airplane. So whenever it was raining outside and, it's overcast at 500 feet, I was going there, taking my books and just sitting in a 172, just kind of being in the atmosphere of what I'm doing. So I was always at the airport. Every time I got a chance, if I wasn't in class or I wasn't working at the university, I was in that flight deck of the 172, just soaking it all in. So got all my ratings there, and then I got my CFI at the same airport, another local FBO at the same airport. And then all the while I'm networking. So networking for me kind of started really before I got into aviation. And I was sitting in the break room as a CFI, just finished a student, and I'm eating lunch. And one of my mentors, one of my kind of instructors that can help me out, he walks by. He'd already graduated. He walked by and he's like, "Hey, do you want a job?" "Maybe. Tell me more." So he's like, "Hey, so I'm flying for this corporate company up in Indianapolis, or flying corporate jets. They're looking for new people. The only requirement is that you went to Liberty and that you have a CFI, and they'll hire you to fly jets." So, of course, my eyes are wide-eyed because at that time I had maybe 240 hours total time. So, I'm like, oh my goodness, absolutely. And that's one of the points in my life where I realized, say yes now and figure the rest out later. So I just said yes. And he set me up with an interview. I actually flew up to Indianapolis to do the interview with this FBO, this corporate company. And of course, I'm trying to defend my, flight hours and how I'm going to be a great, pilot for them. And they're just like, hey, you went to Liberty, tell me about what's important to you and kind of the HR type stuff. They didn't care at all about my flight experience. It was more about me as a person. And they said, "Hey, when can you start?" "Well, I graduate on May 16th. I can be there on Monday." And they said, "Come on up and we'll start you." So I worked at this company and started flying the CJ-1. That was the Citation CJ-1 was the first plane I flew Flew that for about 20, 30 hours. And then I kind of got in a real cool situation because there's about 3 or 4 FOs at that company that were going on to the airlines. So I moved up rather quickly. And in a matter of maybe 3 or 4 weeks, I started flying the Citation Excel, which is a lot bigger airplane, seats about 10 people, fly about 2,000 miles. So started flying that. And that's really how I got all my flight time from 250 hours until 1,250. I was restricted ATP for 1,250 hours. So I did that for about a year and a half, and that's what I built my time to go to the airlines.
I tell you that there are a lot of people that reach out that want to, they have questions about where can I find a low time job? There just seems to be this, there seems to be this barrier that is just right there at 250 hours that you have to turn over every single rock to try to get. And I love that your statement about, I was just in the break room, I was just hanging out, but you were present there, and you're always at the airport, and you're always chatting with people. And that is a testament to the power of networking and also the power of being where you want to go, right? So put yourself in those places. Go around. I talked to my son. My son's 12, and he wants to fly. He wants to get into aviation, and he doesn't get it yet. But I tell him, like, hey, we're probably going to go sweep some floors and wash some planes and do the things that are not fun that nobody wants to do. And that is, I'm telling you, that is your $1 million ticket when you are there and people know who you are and they see that you're a hard worker and trustworthy and a good person. And that's what the people, it sounds like, hey, you went to Liberty, that checks my block of this person leans a little more towards being a good person. Not that any other school is not, but that's their mentality when they are looking for a candidate. And I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's one thing that when I started this aviation journey, everything had to have a plan, right? So I sat down one day and I just mapped out what I would like to happen, kind of the progression. And then I worked backwards. I always tell my mentees now, we all have this magical goal of where we want to be, whether it's a 747 captain or a 777 captain. That's fine to have that goal, set that goal. Now let's work backwards to see what we need to do to make that the most efficient time. So for me, deciding to go to this corporate company, it was going to take a little bit longer for me to get my flight time. And that was one of the cons, right? But the thing that I kept coming back to, and I'm talking to my brother, talking to other aviation people that I knew, a lot of mentors, they were like, that time is valuable. So even if it takes 6 more months or a year, you're flying with captains that have been around for 20, 30 years. You're flying to Teterboro. You're flying in all these advanced airspaces. The first time I used HF frequency was at 400 hours flying to Bermuda, right? I didn't do that at my current job now until I was about a year in, right? So I had all this different exposure, and that was the thing that they told me, and I couldn't grasp it at the time because I only had 230 hours. I don't know what HF. I don't know what I don't know. So I had to trust what my mentors were telling me and just jump and go for it. And in all that time, every hour that I flew was for a purpose. Even when I started my corporate job, every hour I was like, okay, let me ask these questions to this person who has all this experience because I want to be that person 20, 30 years down the road. And it starts now. So everything had a plan towards it. And it's kind of cool when I look back and I see, where I am now. But during it wasn't, it's hard to see the end of the road when you're on the road, right? So, that's one of the things that really helped me in my journey. And to this day, that job was the best decision I could have made in my career, even though I didn't see, it wasn't clear where the pathway was, but it was one of the best connections, best jobs I've ever had.
Yeah. And you were a young guy, man. And that's so, it's very fortuitous, but also having the wherewithal to know that this is a good job for me. And I love that because you also had mentors helping you and your brother kind of helping you call the shots, and you weren't making it in a vacuum. And so many people kind of shoot from the hip without digging in and thinking about the bigger picture. And people that are people that are past you can see that bigger picture and be really helpful. Tell me what you did. You banged out 1,250 hours, and did you jump to a regional? Did you jump to something else? What were you doing as you were making your way toward your end goal?
Yeah. So the master plan was to get my 250 hours and then go to a regional airline. Even in that regional, the type of regional I chose was very thought out, right? So I know I've seen how this industry works. About every 8 years, something happens. So I wanted to go to a regional that was big enough that could withstand, quote unquote, some of the hits on the industry. So I did decide to go to Envoy. That was the bigger picture because, okay, it's a bigger company. They're backed by a bigger airline. They have the flow, which I put in my back pocket. So I wanted to have backstops to if it doesn't go well. Like my brother always tells me, it was great until it wasn't. So I always keep that wasn't part in my head. It's not always going to be, rainbows and sunshine all the time. You have to keep in mind what happens when it doesn't go right. So decided to go there. And soon as I got cleared off of OE, it's like, what's next? I need to upgrade. So I flew my tail off. It was 8 days off a month, which was the FAA minimum. And I basically went home to do laundry. That was about it. But I was on the road getting my flight time as quick as possible, but not only getting the flight time, asking questions, right? Every flight hour was for a purpose. So, we're in a situation where we're holding, hey, take me through your thought process. What are you thinking? How did you come up with that number? Or, hey, whatever, the airport is closed. Kind of take me through how you're thinking. So everything was absorbing the entire time of all these different things because I knew 1,000 hours is coming. And when it comes, yes, that bingo number. Because, I did some of this corporate, but it's different. We don't have a regulation we just have the FARs that we have to make sure we comply with. We don't have all these other rules that the 121 world has. So all that time I was soaking in as much information as I could to, again, make the time as efficient as possible. Because in my mind, flight hour, it's just a number. It really doesn't mean anything, right? You could have 20,000 hours, but it doesn't mean that the quality of those hours were anything. So throughout all that time, I wanted to make sure I had the quality of the hours. And then once I got to my 1,000, I got the captain upgrade. Thankfully, the industry was at a point where you could upgrade with 1,000 hours. So I took the first upgrade and started that journey.
Yeah, it's that's a really interesting point because right now you can upgrade at 1,000 hours. If you went back 2016 or 2015, once you hit your 1,000 hours, you're qualified to put in for captain. But a lot of people couldn't hold it yet because there were a lot of people stayed at the regionals for a much longer time. So when people are staying there, there's less opportunity. And so you just were fortunate enough to be at that place where they're moving people up and out. The flow keeps people moving, plus people are getting hired off the street to other places. And that keeps your number, moving forward. And we're still in that. And people, I think, would think that's a normal thing, but it's actually not a normal thing. And so I just want the pilot to be aware that is, we're very lucky to be in that zone right now, for sure. Timothy P. Pope is a certified financial planner dedicated to guiding professional pilots through smart financial planning. Whether it's saving for retirement, investment management, a seamless military transition, or strategic tax planning, Tim is your trusted financial partner. Also, you can join Tim as he leads engaging discussions on personal finance and strategies for professional pilots on the brand new Pilot Money Podcast. Timothy P. Pope, helping professional pilots make the most out of life. So how long were you there before you ended up getting hired elsewhere?
Yes. So let's see, that was 2017. So it was about 2.5 years. So as soon as I upgraded to captain, and to your last point, this is one of the reasons why I planned early, right? So before I even started flight training, everything was written out. It's like, okay, if the industry goes this direction, this is what we're going to do. If the industry goes the other direction, this is what it's going to do. And me seeing that the industry was going that way, I said, you have to seize this now. Like, you cannot wait. You cannot say, okay, it'll be here 3-4 years later, because as you know, the industry changes. So it was one of those that I had to add into the overall plan and really grind and hustle. And that's what started the speed of my timeline from lesson one, flight one of Private 101 to getting to Envoy to upgrading to captain. It was everything. There was a sense of urgency. So once I upgraded to captain, now the next thing is I need PIC time, right? Because during that time, getting hired with no PIC was few and far between. I mean, it still is now, but at that time it was really, really difficult. So I needed to get as much PIC time as possible. But then the other elements started coming in, and that was the networking part. So job fairs, networking. I would literally spend all my sits in Chicago. I was Chicago based. I would spend all my 2 to 3 hour sits walking outside of our terminal. So I'm going to the AA terminal. I'm going to the Delta terminal. I'm going to United terminal. If I saw a pilot, I'm talking to him. Hey, my name is Andre. How are you? Just wonder if we can exchange contact information. You have any advice for me in the industry? Hey, tell me your story. And I did that every single sit that I had in any hub. I was not going to the crew room. I was not sitting back and, taking a nap. Everything was mission oriented. And it was a part of, like I said, that grand plan that I had is every hour, every time that I spent on the job had to be very efficient. So, I did a lot of that, did a lot of networking. I met a lot of great people, and started going to job fairs. And even in addition to that, I knew I could do more. So I took a giant leap of faith one day, and I'm on Facebook. Everybody's on Facebook. And I just started Googling people. So I was like, okay, American, United, Delta, FedEx, UPS. And if that airline was in that person's bio, I sent them a message. Hey, little elevator speech. My name is so-and-so. This is my hours. I have a really big goal of trying to get to your airline. What advice do you have for me? I sent that out to about 80 people. And about 65 of them responded with phone numbers like, hey, give me a call right now. I'll help you out. One of them was a FedEx pilot. And he literally said, dude, you want to come out to Memphis? I can give you a whole tour of the facility. Flew me out to Memphis. We spent the whole day going and meeting people. And, for me, that only happened because I jumped, right? I jumped into the world of uncertainty and I just asked. And that really kind of helped me increase my network, but also increase my exposure to different airlines, different cultures, different people, and also realize that pilots are there to help pilots. Like, we love helping each other, but you have to ask for that help. Nick, you're not going to go around and be like, hey, do you need some? No, if they come to you, you'll probably speak up. So that kind of spurred the journey there too.
Yeah. And that is so true. I have found that the aviation community is very, very willing to help. And I can't tell you how many phone numbers people just give to you and just say, hey, call me. You got questions. You want to talk about this or that, or you need help with something. I am here for you. It's just a giving, open communication world. And that's one of the things I really noticed when I moved from consulting in Washington, D.C. to aviation, professional aviation. In D.C., it was always like, what can you do for me? What can you do for me? What can you do for me? And with you as a regional FO or a regional captain even, you can't do anything for anybody unless they're in flight school, right? You can be a little bit of help, but you are... There's no angle. There's no angle here where these people are going to make more money because you are who you are, right? You are just another helping hand along the journey. And that is what I love about aviation. So yes, you can get a job, but it's not like you're going to get 10 jobs and all of a sudden, be making crazy more different decisions. Like, you have this path. You are an aviator, and that's the path. And I love that. That's a really good point you brought up. So thanks for sharing that. Was that fruitful in you getting your next job?
Very, in the weirdest way. Because naturally, like any human, I'm networking, I'm doing everything I can, I'm flying my tail off. Nothing's happening. Right? I'm going to tour the facility. I'm meeting all these people. I'm getting these reconnections. The conversations are going great. We're about this. I got hired at Envoy in 2017. So we're probably in the 2018 phase here. So I threw, once I was qualified and I had my unrestricted ATP, got the restriction removed, first class medical, 1,500 hours, I applied everywhere. And then from there, I knew I needed to network. So my application had been in for a while. And something that my parents taught me early on is they always said, you're in a race by yourself. To this day, my parents still say the same thing. You're in a race by yourself. So I've never compared myself to anyone. The only person I ever compare myself is to myself. So I knew I was below the average flight time to get hired. I knew I didn't have tons of PIC, but I also knew that nobody can compete with my why. So, and I knew the only person separating me from where I wanted to be in this world was me. So, but naturally, as I'm doing all this, I'm working my tail off. I'm meeting everybody. My voice is tired. It's 11 o'clock at night and I'm here talking to, pilots in the crew van going to the hotel, just trying to ink, and I'm just exhausted and nothing's happening, right? I'm just like, I didn't get any emails from any of the airlines, like what's going on? So, but I didn't let that stop me. I go talk to the parents and, I get remotivated, talk to my brother and like, just keep going. So I doubled down and I went even harder. So if I was talking to 20 pilots, I'm like, you know what? Add 40 more. So I went even harder. And I networked even more. So instead of meeting 2 pilots at the United terminal, I was going to go meet 6. At Delta Star, I was going to go meet 10. At American, I was going to meet 12. I was just increasing my numbers, my volume. And I kept doing that and nothing happened until one day, I had a pilot reach out to me and he said, what do you think about getting hired at American outside of the flow? Yes, I would love that. It's like, okay, cool. Nothing happened. So I'm like, that was odd. Sure enough, about 2-3 weeks later, boom, I get an email from American. Hey, at that time, you'd submit a video interview first, submit your video interview. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then a week after that, Delta sent the email. So everything happened like very quick and my eyes were wide eyed, like, oh my gosh, I'm shaking. I'm like nervous. Everything's happening so quick. And that's kind of what set everything off. So this was January of 2020 when both of those emails. So I don't know if that person had any connection, but these were within 2 to 3 weeks of each other. But the ironic part was that pilot that reached out to me was not an employee of either of those 2 airlines. So it was kind of a weird situation. But yeah, that's when I finally had that breakthrough.
The most interesting part is, hey, that guy doesn't fly for either of those 2 airlines, and that is also true because there are people. We all now that I'm at my major, I have brother and sister pilots that are at every major and every regional and every ULCC and everything, and that their connections are broad, and you never know where that you might think you're going down one road when all of a sudden there's an intersection that you weren't even aware of. And that's really compelling. And I love that, dude. How was that American interview?
I was nervous.
Yeah.
I was prepared. But it's a lot of different emotions, right? Because it's your dream. Right? You're there in the flesh, right? You're soaking it all in, but you got to perform, right?
Yeah.
The job wasn't done, right? Like Kobe Bryant, job's not finished, So this whole entire time, like I said, this was a part of the timeline the whole time, but I knew I couldn't let off the gas. So, throughout my whole life, I would get, hey, Andre, why are you working so hard? Why are you doing this? Like, hey, let's go out and do this. I'm like, sorry, I have a Mamba mentality and I can't stop until I reach my goals. It's something that's always been a part of me since before even aviation. So I've always like I said, I never compare myself to anybody else. I'm in a race by myself. So I never compare to the person that's ahead, behind, sideways, left, or right. It's me.
Except Kobe.
Except Kobe. Kobe, LeBron, Michael Jordan, Serena Williams, you name the dominant athlete, that's what I tried to do. And I studied those people, right? Because how did they get so great? And one of the things, real quick, I love the Kobe Bryant video where he's like, the average person, they get up and, they train from 8 to 10. They take a break and they train from 3 to 5 and then they're done. He's like, well, I get up at 3 a.m. I train from 4 to 6, take a break 8 to 10, and then 2 to 4, and then 6 to 8. And he's like, over time, nobody can catch up to you. So when I saw that, that was that time where I was like, you got to go harder. You got to go bigger. You have to just dig down, right? Nobody looks at the Kobe videos and Michael videos when they're in the gym by themselves. So I kind of took that to heart. And going into my American interview, job's not finished. So we got to prepare. You're still in a race by yourself. So stop looking at the resumes to your left, the resumes to your right, how that person's dressed, and it's you versus you. So I really dug deep. I prepped my tail off. I wanted to be prepared as much as I could and went into that interview. And it was almost like a calming nervousness. I was nervous to be there, but I was also calm knowing that this is personal. Like I'm getting this job. I don't care what anybody else says, right? It's like Deion Sanders. This is personal. I made it personal, right? I know this airline hires tens of thousands of people. That CJO is mine. And I need to prepare like it's mine. And I made it personal to me. And I think that's really what made the interview, I wouldn't say easier. I just had a purpose behind it, right? So when I was prepping it, I wasn't sure I could get tired because I'm doing prep for hours and hours and hours, but it is a different type of tired. It's a tired with a purpose at the end of it. So going into the interview, I was calm as a cucumber, ready to go. I'm ready to tell you my story. I'm ready to tell you my why. I'm ready because I know that I've worked my tail off to get to this point and you have the job that I want.
So for those that don't work for Envoy, you need to know that when you go to simulator training at Envoy, you do it at the American Airlines headquarters, and you walk in this door and it says, the world's greatest pilots are trained here. And you make a right down the hall to go to the simulator. But if you make a left, you are right there where they do the interviews. And Every time you go into training, there's a dozen people in a suit waiting, and you walk by that and it's not you. And you walk by it every single time and it's not you. And you just want it to be you. And tell me what that feeling was like when you turned left.
Inspiring, right? Nervous, but also job's not finished. I'm not there yet, right? So what am I doing now? So guess what? When I'm going into that training session, I need to be where my feet are. I need to be present. I need to make sure I study, right? I need to make sure I pass these recurrents. I need to make sure that I'm still building towards that journey of being in that suit, right? Because one thing that I always try to encourage people is when somebody gets hired, that's not the full story, right? That's just the small little microcosm of the whole thing. But all those little things that build towards that story, right? So when I walked into the training center, we have a dress code. Not my dress code. Dress shoes, dress pants, collared shirt, tucked in, dress for the job you want, not the job you got, right? So yeah, sure, my peers are wearing the collared shirt, the jeans. That's fine. You do you. But I went in there and I dressed professionally like the Check Airman dressed, right? They were there in a long sleeve shirt, just looking professional, clean shaven, hair looking good. Everything was just tight, shoes shine. So when I went to Recurrent, I want to look like them. So I'm standing straight and tall. I make sure I got everything together. It's a small thing, but it kept my mind, just like in that 172 when I was studying and all of a sudden, it kept my mind present on the goal. So
also, I would like to bring up the fact that those Check Airmen are sitting in the back just chilling, doing what they do every day. And you are dressed up and you're sweating your tail off because you're stressed out because you got a V1 cut and all the things. So good on you, my man. I love that.
Yeah. And it's something I really took to heart. And it's one of those things that I tell a lot of people, this is what you have to plan ahead of time, right? And you're in a race by yourself because none of my peers did that. right? But I wasn't like, oh, well, they're not wearing it, so let me just wear it. No, I have a mission that I'm trying to accomplish here. So, and then like you said, it's the American Airlines Training Center. So all of their check airmen there are too. All of the decision makers are right there, and they're all dressed well, right? So every interaction I had with people that I met, it's an interview. Any interaction that I had, whether it was meeting pilots at United or not United at O'Hare when I was on SITS, or whether I was at Recurrent at Envoy, or whether I was it's an interview, right? In the sense of like, I'm still selling myself, right? I want I'm not talking in slang. I'm not talking in these different types of languages. I'm trying to represent myself in a good way, and my family in a good way, my family name in a good way. So every interaction was a purpose behind it. And I took that through the 2.5 years I was on at Envoy. So it was 2 recurrence and 1 upgrade training. It was the same thing every single time. You're going in on a mission, right? You got to pass your stuff. You're passing a lot of people that know people and have a lot of connections. So you need to network. Everything had a purpose behind it. And that's something I really kind of held near and dear to my heart throughout the entire process.
I am interested in, so a 2.5 years at Envoy, you started with American, but then you started giving back as well. So how did you come down the path to where you wanted to help people be solid and perform in the interviews? What kind of was that pivot point where you did that?
Well, I would say I've always been the mentor type person. That's something I've always enjoyed. I've always had a passion for, just helping the person behind me, right? Because a lot of times, like if my brother never was a pilot, I mean, maybe I would have, but I probably wouldn't have if he didn't teach me and kind of train me and like, hey, this is what's going on. This is what it's like. So for me, to me, part of my why in my purpose in life that I'm discovering is I want to maximize my potential as a person, and I want to help other people maximize their potential as a person. So as I'm going through and, I finished my private in 50 days and I'm doing my instrument in the fastest time, one of the fastest time ever at Liberty University, I don't want to keep that to myself, right? There was a lot of breakthroughs that I had that a lot of people had never seen before, working at a corporate airline at 250 hours, and then, going to Envoy and doing everything I did. To me, I couldn't keep that to myself. I wanted to share that with another person because I realized that a lot of people in this world just need that person to help guide them along, just like I had people guide me along. So every journey I was going on, I was always looking to the people that had 500 hours, 250 hours, that were thinking about being a pilot, saying, hey, this is what I did. And once I got that job at American, it was emotional because my story was, I listened to my parents, right? I wasn't raised by myself. And my resume did not match the other people's resumes. But my drive and my passion and my work ethic blew everybody else out of the water. And I took that personally. So, when I see my flight hours that I got hired with compared to the people next to me, and it was lower, right? I had to tell people, hey, if you can get your perspective right and you start early on, and everything is a building block, and you network and you work your tail off, eventually there will be a breakthrough. I don't know how, I don't know when, but eventually your hard work will pay off. So that's what really started out. I've always been a mentor type person my entire life. And as I got more involved with these networking, I started getting involved with the OBAP, Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals, their ACE Academies. So I do a lot of the ACE Academies here in Charlotte. Absolutely love doing it. If you've never done it, it's so much fun. But basically, it's about 12 to 17-year-olds, and you're just introducing them to aviation. And I saw a lot of them, or a lot of me in them, right? Just needing guidance on what to do. So that's one of the highlights of my year, is doing that week-long event at the OBAC ACE Academy. And also, I'm always mentoring. So I'm reaching out to people. Hey, if you need any help, let me know. If you need any advice. And that's always been a part of my life. Really, I can't tell you when mentoring started, but I would say in about July of the next year. Big part of the story here is, so I did all this work to get to where I was. And if you remember, I said I got an interview in January 2020.
Yeah.
Well, my start date, which in a couple of days, was March 17th of 2020.
Man, so
If
close.
you're doing the timeline, that's when things started to go south here in the world, right? So did all this work to get to my dream job. Got an email about 2 days prior saying, hey, don't come down to Dallas. Things are going rough. We're going to still onboard you. We'll put you on the seniority list, but don't come. And
good.
We'll get back to you.
At least you got on the list.
Yes. And I am forever grateful to the team at American because I was very close to not being on the other side of that line. So I was the youngest in class. I was number 15,710. I was the most junior pilot at American Airlines at that time.
And American does seniority for new hires based on your age.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was the youngest. I was 25 at the time.
Damn.
Yeah. So I was riding the caboose of the train.
I'll take it. Get me on the train.
Yes. And so that was a big part of the journey, right? Is my chief pilot called me 2 days prior saying, hey, I have your letter of resignation. I can rip this up right now if you want to come back. So I got caught in a real awkward spot of what do I do?
And Chicago had not shut down for Envoy yet.
No, not really.
Okay.
Like I think hiring had stopped, but at that point I was probably like 40% seniority. So had I stayed, I'd been fine.
Yeah.
And again, at that point, that's where the mentors come in. I don't know. Yeah. I've never faced furloughs. I've never faced the 9/11. I've never faced all this type of stuff. I need people to help me in this journey.
Yeah.
You know, every last one of them are like, go to American. Do not stay because, you know, they were talking about different things and politics that were going on. But I stayed on. Unfortunately, October 1st of 2020, I was the first one out the door. Mm-hmm. So all this work and build up came crashing down October 1st. And now I don't even have a job when I got furloughed from American. So yeah.
and you're married.
Yes.
Were you married then?
Oh man. So that's the cool part about my wife and I's relationship is we met about a month prior to me getting my interviews at Delta American. And then COVID happened. She's in the medical field. So our careers literally went two different directions. She's busy doing everything that I have no job. I don't even know what I'm doing at that point. So it was kind of cool because the majority of our relationship was in COVID. So she saw the very worst of me and I saw the very worst of her. And that really brought us together. And now being on the other side of that, it's really like a special part of our relationship and our marriage because we were tested really early on with just life, right? And we really got to see, okay, this is what could happen in the industry, right? So yeah, it definitely was, it was a trying time, definitely. But I wouldn't change it for the world.
It's a beautiful mess. That's it. All right, what'd you do? Just hang out, sit on the couch, smoke cigars, drink whiskey? Like, what were you doing?
So after I cried for about a couple weeks in the fetal position, because my whole life came crashing down at once.
Yeah.
I heard this quote somewhere. I don't know where it came from, but it was never let a good crisis go to waste. So back to the drawing board. I'm like, okay, what are we doing? You know, you're in aviation. You can't put all of your eggs in one basket. So think of stuff. I've always been of the entrepreneurial type mind. I had little eBay stores when I was in high school. In college, I had little ideas of selling things, you know, reselling items on sale from Best Buy and put them on eBay and selling for more. So I've always had like an entrepreneurial type mind. And I had a business minor from Liberty as well. So I'm just trying to think. I'm like, okay, where can I find value? Where can I create value? And doing all this research. And in October of 2020, I started my own drone company here in Charlotte. And I built everything from scratch. So
Wow.
the LLC from scratch, the website from scratch. I taught myself how to fly. I have no cinematography background at all. I went to YouTube University to learn everything there is about different shots and angles and videos. And then it was almost like back at that corporate company all over again. It's like, okay, now we got to hustle. So I was going out and just offering my services to people around the Charlotte area, which is where I live now, and selling my services.
We're doing like real estate videos and things like that.
I did real estate, commercial, and residential videos. I've done videos for some of the professional organizations out here doing like a 4th of July events or different stuff like that. So yeah, that's what I was doing during this whole time is I was just going out there. And during that time, people weren't going out to see this stuff. So a lot of these companies needed videos to market their services. So, went out, bought my drone, taught myself everything, and made something positive out of the crisis.
So smart. Dude, that is so smart. Gosh, good job.
Thank you.
Virtual high five over to you, man. That's awesome. Okay, so how long did you stay off the list and then talk to me about coming back on? Because I also want to talk about, we've been talking for 40 minutes, but I do want to talk about what you do with us too, because I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was furloughed for 2 months, from October 1st to December 1st. And then there was a COVID Bill 3 was the one that brought me back on payroll, but I didn't start flying I actually didn't go to INDOC until July of that same year. So this is 2021.
Wow.
Because we didn't do any real official onboarding. So went to INDOC in July, got married while I was in INDOC, which that was.
Did you get married in class where everybody like lined up? And no,
we definitely could have done that, but it was Friday at 5, I left, flew home, married Saturday. And then on Monday I was back in training to finish up. So it's kind of crazy. And then I started flying. I was initially based in Miami on the 7-3 in August. And that's what started the flying.
Yeah, man. And then how did you meet Judy Tarver?
So I actually prepped with Judy for my interview. So that's my first interaction with Judy Tarver at Pilot Counseling Services. And everything was personal. And I felt like she was really pouring into me as if I was the only client in the world. And I just love that personal aspect from that. So Judy has always had a special place in my heart because of how much she invested into me and helping me land my dream job. So in January of 22, she reached out and said, "Hey, are you have any interest in doing application reviews at Pilot Counseling Services?" I don't know what that is. But like I said at the beginning, say yes, figure the rest out later. I said, yes. Okay, cool. Let's learn and let's do it. And believe it or not, I loved it. I loved doing it. So that was 2021, January, I started doing that. And coming until now, let's see, last year in October of 23 is when the whole Spitfire thing happened. And
yeah. So for those that aren't tracking, Judy Tarver was the director of pilot hiring at American Airlines for a long time. She was the queen bee, right? And she's such a great dynamic person. And she had her interview prep company for a very, very long time. And then early in 2023, mid 2023, we started having conversations with Judy about merging our forces together from Spitfire and Judy's team. And we really, it's been a lot of fun because we've been able to really expand both sides of this team win because we have way more resources, we have way more people, and we have just a great community of thought. And so talk to me about what that was like kind of coming in from Judy's team to Bill and Tron's team. What was that like?
Yeah, it was interesting, right? Because I had heard of Spitfire, right? I'd seen, Spitfire at the job fairs, but I didn't really know Spitfire at all. It was just another company. And I remember Judy came up to me one day at the last OBAP and was like, "Hey, I got an idea I want to just share with you. What do you think?" And once I started learning more about what she was saying and, how, Spitfire cares for people, that's speaking my love language, because I care. I love caring for people. And I knew Judy loved people, right? So to me, it was a no-brainer. And I couldn't be more excited, when she made that decision, it's a tough decision, right? Yeah. And to join forces. And in October, I remember I had my first conversations with Bill and Tron, and it was like a match made in heaven. And I was like, yes, this is what needs to be done.
Yeah, it's so nice. Our team is all virtual, right? We all work from our houses. You live in Charlotte, I live in Atlanta, Bill and Tron live in Texas, and everybody lives everywhere. We have most states in the United States, we have people that live there, and we all kind of work virtually. And that's also one of the big reasons I go to the conferences, is because different coaches come together and I get to be, face-to-face friends with them instead of just, in the chat and on the phone friends. And this is why I move heaven and earth to go to all these high-end conferences. Because like that community is my love language, man. Like being here, being together. That's so fun. Hey, pilot. Does your pilot uniform make a short flight feel like a transcon slog? Flight Uniforms have reinvented aviation shirts. With 3D stretch, stain repellents, and no wrinkles, these shirts are just plain comfortable and ready for takeoff right out of your rollerboard. Flight Uniform is trusted by more than 25,000 pilots, and their flagship flight shirt has over 1,500 five-star reviews. I've worn every pilot shirt out there, and if you know me, you know I only wear flight uniforms. Be the envy of every cockpit at flightuniform.com and get a special podcast exclusive discount with the code SpitfirePod20 to take 20% off your first order at flightuniform.com. So after our big group hug, I want what's up with application review? Like, how do you get into it? Why is it important?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's one of the biggest questions. Why do I need my application reviewed?
Yep.
And the short answer is because we're pilots and we make mistakes that we don't necessarily recognize as mistakes. So, that application, that is your first interview really with the company before your actual interview. It's your first impression. And it's really important to make sure all of your information is correct, that you really sell yourself. Like I always tell people, all the time, whether they're clients or not clients, is you're a salesperson. That's really all you're doing, is you're selling yourself to that airline and giving them a reason to hire you. Well, that's what the application's for, because you won't get the call for the interview unless you pass the application. So the application in that resume, that's your first point of contact, right? I always say all the time, these companies only know you as a white sheet of paper with black ink. They have no idea who you are. So you have to help them paint that picture of who you are through your application. And it's not always going to be black and white of, okay, tell me all of the things you did from this year to this year. It may just be something as, hey, tell me about your achievements and awards, or tell me about your educational achievements. Very open-ended, but it's up to you to read between the lines and know, okay, this is my opportunity to sell myself. So that's really where the importance of that comes from.
Yeah, absolutely. So if somebody's not familiar with how we handle an application review, walk me through the process.
Yeah. So we have a team of about 10 app reviewers here at Spitfire. And we have a whole entire course that's on our site that you would sign up for. You'd purchase the application resume course or the all-in package, which comes with the application resume view course. That course is about 4 different lessons, just kind of going through and kind of teaching you the elements of an application review. The application review itself comes with 2 applications to be reviewed and 1 resume. And there's a submission portal in that course in lesson 3 where you submit that application and the resume. it goes into a portal where all of our coaches have access to. And then you are assigned to a coach. And then that coach basically goes through, we, scrub your resume, your applications. If you get me as a coach, I'm going to put as much red as possible all over it. Because again, I want you to maximize your potential, right? So
that's it.
Because
you love them.
Yeah.
Because you love them, not because they're messing up, right?
Yeah. I love you enough to tell you that it's wrong. So I'm going to mark it up, right?
Good.
And I mean, you could talk to I take it personal for them, right? Because I knew I didn't have that when I was going through the process. I had an application review, but there was no personal aspect. Nobody called me and asked me, hey, what are your goals? Like, tell me about yourself. Like, nobody called me. It was just an email back and forth and, all right, you're good. And I didn't feel that personal touch. Now, I didn't do my application review with Pilot Counseling Services. This is another company. So coming into it, I wanted to empathize. Like, look, I knew what I felt like. So every client that I have, we're going to mark it up. Then we're going to talk about it. All right. We're going to spend maybe 30, 45 minutes. I'll be there to answer all the questions that you have. And then I'm going to give you career advice. I'm going to tell you about my story, the job fairs, what to do. And my goal is to help clients put their best foot forward, right? I want you to be authentic, right? I want you to find the company that fits you. And then I want to empathize, right? And that empathize is the most important part of the whole process, because I was just in this spot not too long ago.
Yeah. So I've been in this space for a really long time, and I love it. I love what we do. I love the things I get to learn. And people ask me to review their applications, and I say, I am not part of the application team. Like, what you want, I want Kobe Bryant and I want Rain Man to both review my application, because I want the winner and the guy that doesn't quit, and I want them to really focus on it. So when you look across the spectrum, there are a bunch of companies that do application review. There's even some companies that will tell you that they will build your application for you. And I want to caution you on having somebody else do your work, because that application and that resume, that is you, and that's everything that you put on the table for that interviewer. And if those are not your words, if you do not know that, like my application that I submitted to my airlines, if I sat down today and they had my applications cold, I could talk about all of it, because I know it, because I built it, because it was part of me. And so you need to spend the time to build that, to know yourself. And Andre and the guys and gals that we have, like they got the red pen and they will make it fire. But we can't make you fire unless you tell us who you are. And that's so important. Like, that's probably the biggest, best part of what we do. Because you're like, yeah, here's my app, crush it. And you're like, man, that's way more, like, that's 2 pens worth of ink. And that's what, like, let's go. Like, that's what it's all about. I don't know. What do you think, brother?
Yeah, absolutely. And, here's the thing that you have to realize too about this industry is it is very difficult to get a job at a major airline, period. There's thousands of applicants, right? And even if all these airlines hired to their full amounts that they all wanted to, there still would be people left behind that wouldn't get a job. So the application, it's going to be tough. Well, guess what? It's tough to get a job. I mean, these are the major airlines. They're not just hiring anybody. So it's very important that it's you. The airlines want to know you, right? If I look at a resume and I see, you have an Airbus 320 type or a 175 type, I know you can fly an ILS approach to minimums. I have no doubt. We can put you in a 787 simulator tomorrow, 6 weeks, you'd be type, hip, hip, hooray. The other side of it, I don't know. I don't know who you are as a person. I don't know your why. I don't know what makes you you. I don't know what separates you from everybody else. And that's why the application is so important. Why you want to do it yourself is because you want to present your authentic self to these airlines. These airlines are hiring you. They're not hiring your qualifications, right? Because the minimums at the airlines, they haven't changed. 1,500 hours, first class medical, unrestricted ATP. They know they put you in a simulator, you'll be fine. What they don't know is who you are. And that's why it's really important. I and the people at Spitfire, our team, we will never tell you what to say.
Yeah.
Ever. I don't tell you what to say. You can ask all of my clients, and I will never say what. I give you the framework of what we should say. I always frame the question for, the duties box. Everybody, some people don't put a lot in the duties box. I'm like, well, that's your opportunity to sell yourself. So imagine the director of hiring is sitting in front of you right now. And they said, okay, Nick, you get one question. If you answer this question right, I'll give you the CJO. And that question is, based on your experience as a sales associate for Macy's, why should we hire you at this airline? And that answer that you come up with, that's what they want to know. Sell yourself. And that's where that authentic part comes out. And they really get to see who you are outside of the flight deck and what qualities that you're actually bringing to that airline. And that's the person that they're hiring.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, especially with Macy's because they're going through bankruptcy right now. It's a mess. So, but I completely agree. And I want to talk to the line check airman. I want to talk to the chief pilot. I want to talk to the Blue Angel and the astronaut and every other pilot in between, because so many times I'll bump into people that say, oh, I didn't do application review. And then, but I'm looking forward to, I know I'm going to get this job, but if you maybe you will, maybe you won't, but what is your career worth? And if it's worth the effort to spend the extra time to make sure that your knife is sharp, because if you're going to get a knife fight, you want the sharpest knife. And that is where, because everybody else in that room has a knife and you're competing, especially this year, every time we turn around, somebody's not hiring, somebody's reducing their, they're not holding classes. They're putting people in a pool instead of honoring CJOs, and they're going through possible Chapter 11 themselves. It's every day there's something new in the airlines, or Boeing's not delivering the amount of aircraft that they thought they were going to have. And y'all, you are in competition for the championship, and only a few people get to be on that team. So make yourself better.
Absolutely.
How long does it take? Like, can I come in? Hey, I'm going to Women in Aviation in a week, and can I get this thing done? Or is it 2 days? Is it a month? Is it kind of depends on what we've got? What are you seeing?
It's busy. It's busy. Women Aviation is a little bit bigger than NGPA in February. Yes. So it's busy. What I always say is, people ask, when's the best time to submit your application, resume to be reviewed? I always say yesterday. Get it in as soon as possible. Now, as we get closer to Women Aviation, it's going to be tough to turn everybody back with the, the markings and the debrief. The debrief is really the most important part of the whole entire thing. Mm-hmm. So, we'll do our best. There's about, like I said, 9 to 10 coaches. We're going to try our best. And the sooner you get it in, the better. But at any rate, we'll do our best. We'll do our best.
Yeah, I agree. And, Women in Aviation is going to have 4,000 or 5,000 people in it. OBAP is going to have 4,000 or 5,000 people in it. RTAG is going to have 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 people at it. And so you have, and a lot, the more my show gets out there, the more we are present to the people in aviation, the more people want to participate. And so whenever this show comes out, or whenever you're listening to this, I want you to consider that you need to give yourself way more time than you think. And that includes interview prep. I can't tell you how many times I have been at a convention and somebody has come up to me and said, I just thought I'd come by and see how it goes. And then I see them 45 minutes, an hour later, and they're in a panic because they all of a sudden have an interview and they are not ready and there's nothing I can do. And you're just like, it just is what it is. So if you're coming to see me or see Andre at one of the shows, like, we want to see you, but come ready. If you have a resume in your hand to hand out to any person, then you need to be ready. Your application needs to be tight. Your resume needs to be legit. One of the worst things I hate to do is grab my little pen, push the red button down at a conference and start lining stuff out on somebody's resume and be like, hey, I want you to do this. I want you to do that. Hey, good luck. Take this home for the next conference. Like, make sure you do that. Cause I know they're there wanting me to say, hey, this looks good. And I'm almost never going to say this looks good. because I'm always going to have some kind of input because I think that's important. And you want my opinion, you're going to get 1,000% of it every single time. So don't wait until you're face to face with us to do that. It's just so important. So important. Like if you miss out 1 month of seniority, that could be 500 numbers, depending on what airline you're going to.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
Maybe 400. I don't know, but a lot of numbers.
Tell me about it. The line was cut right underneath me.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's about 1.5 years between my number and the one right behind me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, this goes back to why there was always a sense of urgency. I knew it was coming at some point. I didn't know how it was going to come, but I knew that line is going to be drawn somewhere. And there has to be a sense of urgency, not quickness, right? But urgency, right? Control what you can control. That's one thing I always tell. We can't control that you have 1,500 in 1 hour. What we can control is how you tell your story, how you prep, how much time you spend. And the thing I always do is when I was going through my application process, I created my competition. You probably heard athletes say this all the time. You tell Tom Brady, somebody said something to Tom Brady. Did they actually say that? No, but I thought they said it. So now I'm going to go throw 6 touchdowns and win the Super Bowl, right? So for me, I created that Jordan, Kobe, Tiger Woods type competition. And the reason I did it was to keep me focused on the goal. So when I'm going through my application, I'm putting everything on there. No stone is unturned, because I would much rather we exert all our energy into that application and the airline say, you know what? Sorry, it wasn't good enough. I can sleep at night and know I put my best foot forward, versus the other side of it is you don't do it. And then they're like, well, Nick, if you would have just talked a little bit more about your education, we probably would have hired you. You would never be able to live with yourself. Man, I wish I would have done that. So
my big problem is I don't have education. I'm terrible, but
you're a smart man. What do you mean?
But I'll tell you, you always want to be playing offense, so you never have to play defense.
Yep.
And that's it. Always be like, if the ball's moving forward, you need to be with it. And that is where you are. And those are my only metaphors that I'm making up off the top of my head. But I mean, seriously, it's the application process is kind of the first time you're turning on that faucet to say, I'm ready to move up to the next level. And everything else comes as you're turning that faucet wider and wider open. So if you are close to needing to move yourself forward, like that's when. Do you do application reviews for people that are regional airlines?
Everybody.
For people that want to get to a regional?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I would, and I didn't do this for Envoy. I should have, because I look back at my Envoy app. Oh my gosh, this was horrible. So, but it's the bigger picture, right? If somebody's applying to a corporate airline, like 250 hours, I would get your application reviewed, because it's the bigger picture, right? All these applications have the same purpose. They're trying to find who you are. Hiring is very difficult in any industry. And it's more of a risk on the company standpoint to hire somebody that they don't know. So really, you're trying to help them mitigate that risk by having your application polished. I mean, I always use the example. There's a reason why that insurance companies charge an underage fee until you reach 25, right? It doesn't mean that a 23-year-old might get in an accident. It's just data shows that until 25, it may not go that well, right? So with these airlines, you want to help mitigate some of that risk, right? We are a threat to them, quite frankly, right? So if I see that you didn't spell something correctly, or your grammar is off, or you didn't put much attention to detail in an application, why do I think you're going to pay attention to detail on the Airbus or the 350 or the 73?
Or the Citation X or the whatever.
Exactly, right? I don't know, right? But what you're showing me here is, if you don't pay attention to this, you may miss that NOTAM that the runway was closed or that the taxiway was closed, right? And that's how airlines kind of be able to separate the stack, is the little things about, attention to detail.
Yeah. And you have a greater opportunity as well with the resume review portion of that, because if you're going to the major, the resume comes into hand often. If you are going to a convention or something like that, and you typically don't have a resume on hand when you are when you are interviewing. However, if you are going to a corporate job, there's a higher likelihood that they will want to talk about your resume in depth and be able to work through that. And so those are two, they're two sides of the same coin. And so just remember that and don't lose sight of that.
Absolutely. I can tell in about 2.6 seconds whether a resume is a winner or not. Very quick.
Me too.
Very quick. Well, I didn't read anything. A lot of resumes is really optics, how it looks, right? It could be gibberish on there, but that initial, no, you're going to look to see what's on there, but that initial impression, that changes the whole landscape of the conversation. Yeah.
At an interview or at a job fair, average time somebody's going to look at your resume is less than 6 seconds. So you've got to have those things. You've got to know what the important things are. If you guys want a free template, you can go over to the spitfireelite.com/podcast and you can download a free template. It's something for you to work off of, to build off of, to have a format that looks good, but it's not going to give you exactly the perfect resume. You have to build that yourself and work with my team to make sure that it's awesome and tight.
And when you guys, if you sign up for the application resume course, in lesson 1, there's 6 additional templates in there for you to give you more ideas of what you can use for your resume. Because no two resumes are the same, right? Some people have a lot of experience. Some people have a lot of education. Some people have a lot of achievements and awards. And the biggest part is we want to put the best you out there. And that's really what the purpose of the resume is.
And I need the best you on one page.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yes. Yes.
Bro.
Yes. Yes.
People get upset when they're like, hey, will you look at my resume? And I grab the top page and I tear up the back 2 pages and hand it back to them. I'm like, does this tell me everything I need to know? And I get some big eyes and I'm like, hey man, it is what it is. Man,
yeah,
dude.
I agree.
Andre, thank you for this conversation. I love your story. I love your winning attitude that you just bring forward and that Kobe spirit, right? And I just, it's so infatuating and just wants me. I want to go get up and go run 20 miles, but this is so important and this job is worth it. So thank you for what you do and thank you for spending your day with us.
Absolutely. You got to make it personal, right? Like you've said many times, you got between $5 and $20 million. The name is already on the check, right? It's up to you to determine how much is it worth it to you, right? And, I probably spent about $2,000 in interview prep. I don't think about that at all now, not even in the slightest. So invest in yourself. We say it over and over again, invest in yourself and stop comparing yourself to everybody else. It's you versus you. And that's the thing that separates you from your dream job is you, nobody else.
All right. So as we go, if somebody wants to get in touch with you to talk about application review, where do they reach out?
Yeah, absolutely. So my email address is Andre, my first name, Andre, @spitfireelite.com. Reach out to me with questions, comments, concerns, mentorship, anything. I'm here to help. So there it is. I don't know your email, so I'm not going to reach out to you. So it's up to you to reach out to me, and I'm going to help you out.
This is important. Before you go, you need to know that 2024 is going to be unbelievably competitive in the world of pilot hiring, and you need to make sure that you separate yourself from the herd. The only way that you can guarantee that you'll land your dream job is by partnering with Spitfire Elite Interview Consulting. We are the only choice for application review and interview prep. We are the partners that you've been looking for from start to finish, and it's never too early to be part of our community. Just go over to my website, spitfireelite.com, and use the coupon code R4P to save yourself 10% on all of our services. Again, that's the letter R, the number 4, and the letter P to save 10%. So go out there and slay your interviews.